morning we're going to be looking at the second to last of our Beatitudes of Christ given on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. I'm not sure about all of you, but each and every one of these Beatitudes that we've been looking at have really spoke to me and really shown me areas that I need to improve in my life and where I need to grow as a follower of Christ. Everything that Jesus has taught his disciples through these Beatitudes are the examples of who they are to be, and which is very countercultural from what the world has taught us at a very young age. And especially at that time when Christ was teaching these, it was very countercultural for what he was saying. It was really the opposite of everything that they were taught growing up. And I feel like it's the same for us today. And I hope you have seen that being a true follower of Jesus is not about doing things, but it's about being a follower of Jesus. Okay, and what I mean by that is when you do things, it's like almost just like a job. It's a means to an end. You know, we've been remodeling my house for almost close to a month now, and we've purchased quite a few things for the house. And as we've opened some things, I think we bought a chandelier, you know, from a Lowe's, and inside it, like, there were like things that were like cracked and bent and things like that. And we've gotten certain materials that were just not up to par, not even close, especially for the amount of money that you're spending on this stuff, that they're not even close to being quality items. And it's because for a lot of people, it's a means when you do things, it's just a means to an end. I'm just trying to get it done so that I can get through the day. And you guys know that. You've experienced days where sometimes you work hard and sometimes you're like, it's just not there today. It's just not there today. I'm just going to get through this day. But the opposite happens whenever you are your character to be something. It's built inside of you. It's who you are. It's at the fabric of who you are, the core of who you are, to be something, and that is not easily shut down in your life. You know, I have this friend who recently had a situation that happened where he was on a phone meeting, and so he was having these Zoom phone meeting, and as he goes through this entire 30, to an hour phone meeting, he has this really good conversations with all these people, and there's a big, large group of people that he's overseeing, and he's overseeing and reaching out to them and all these different things and teaching them. And as he gets done with this, he thought it went really, really well. He felt like it was a great meeting, and he gets a message. He sends a group message to all of them and says, "Hey, thanks for being a part of the meeting. I thought it went really well. I'm excited about the future." And like about 20 minutes later, there's a text that pops up in this group text chat that he has, and it pops up, and it's a voice recording from one of the people that he was just in there, and he pushes the on button for it to listen to it, and it's this guy from the meeting who is having a conversation with a person he works with, and he is blasting my friend, saying he's a terrible leader, and he's spineless, and he doesn't care about anybody, all these different things. And this person was recording this without even knowing it, and then he pressed sent without even knowing it. So he sends it to the whole group so it's like talking about behind someone's back, and that person happens to be right there, and you're like, I'm sure you guys have been caught in that before, and how terrible you feel. Well, this person I don't know how it's possible, but he did this, and so he was bashing my friend, and it got sent to the entire group. Well, he got what he deserved. Anyway, that's not what my friend did, though. My friend called him up and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that you sent this to the entire group, and it seems like you have a problem with me. Seems like we need to talk through some things. And I'd like to know why you feel this way, and I'd like to understand this." And this guy was like, "No, I didn't say that. I don't know what you're talking about." And he goes, "No, you sent it to the entire group." "No, I deleted that." "So you did say it." "No, you misunderstood me." And he's like denying it. I'm like, "Let me play it back to you. It's still on my phone. You may have deleted it from your phone, but everyone in the group has it still. And he was denying this. But my friend's response was one of love and concern. And I'm sure you guys have felt that like rage that could come up when someone talks behind your back. And the situation that he was enduring, he was able to still be loving, still able to be kind to that person and try to reach out to that person and understand where he's coming from. And even in the midst of this tense situation that he was going through, he was able to show the characteristic of Christ to this person. Why? Because his job was not about doing, it's because he's being Christ. He's not just doing Christian things, religious Christian things. He is being like Christ. So let's jump right in to this week's mind-blowing Beatitude teaching from Jesus that comes from Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. I'm going to read it first in the NLT, which is the one that I typically read from, and then I'll go to the NIV on this one too. It says, God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called children of God. Then the NIV says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So NLT, work for peace. NIV kind of sums it up a little bit better, I think, calls them peacemakers. Okay, peacemakers. And they will be called children of God. As we have done this throughout this entire study, it's important for us to know the original meaning behind the words that are used and the phrases that are used so we can understand what Jesus is trying to teach us. Because there are words that are used that do not mesh with how we use words today. Okay, sometimes there's no good definition for the words that they use in Greek or Hebrew or whatever, and they kind of just put in a word to try to, yeah, that's kind of what they mean, and that's the best fit word for English into that. Okay, there's times where I've gone on mission trips into Spanish-speaking countries, and I'm like, hey, what's the word for this? And they're like, well, we don't have that word. We don't know that word. And so they kind of come up with a phrase that's close to that. And it's something similarly happens here. And so let's start with the word peace. I know when I think of the word peace, I think of hippies and young kids who flash the peace sign. And I think, I don't know why kids do that, but maybe it's the first nonverbal sign that they learn. But kids always, it's like between ages, like 3rd grade through 6th grade, they're always throwing up the peace sign, thinking like it's cool. And don't deny it, you did it too, okay? But that's what I think of when I think of with peace. But for us today, the word peace means freedom from disturbance. And that's what the dictionary says, freedom from disturbance. I think that's a great definition of how I understand the word peace. However, the word peace here in the Hebrew is translated to shalom. And if you know the Old Testament, or if you know anyone that's Jewish, which I do, shalom is a word that is used often, and it's a word to express peace to other people. But it's not just like, as we define peace, as the freedom from disturbance in your life, like peace be with you. I hope you don't have to go through anything difficult. That's kind of how we understand peace is. But when you say shalom, it's more of, I not only don't want evil or anything, conflict to come in your life, I want the very best possible stuff to happen for you in your life. The greatest possible good to be encountered in your life. So that's what shalom means, and that's the word that is used here. So for us, a better understanding is when you, if you ever do this, which I hope you do, ever tell anyone, may God bless your life. That is what shalom means. That is the word peace, and which that's different from us. When I say I'm in peace, it means, my kids have left me alone, and it's quiet in my room or something like that. I'm at peace. I have no conflicts happening in my life. Everything's good. It's peace. All right, but what Jesus is saying here is may God bless you. That's more of that is may you have a great life. May you have many blessings in your life as you move forward. That's the peace that God's talking about, or that Jesus is talking about here. Also notice that the blessing that Jesus promises is not to the peace lover, which what I mean by that is those that are experiencing peace in their life, but the peacemaker. That's the one who is blessed, the person who makes the peace occur for other people. There are many people who think that they enjoy the absence of disturbances in their lives, when in fact, those people that are having peaceful moments typically are just experiencing postponement to their problems and conflicts. Okay? For a lot of us, and I love saying stuff and seeing people smile, because it means that it's speaking to them. And so as a lot of us happen is we don't really have peace. We're just pushing our problems off a little bit farther down the road. Okay? We still have issues that are happening, but we tend to push them down the road. And that's not healthy, as we find out here. Because, honestly, that's just refusing to face the situation and to take action, which the situation demands in each one of our lives. People often hope and pray, and I'm right here with everybody, okay? Please know that this is a lot of the stuff that's on my heart, always. But people often hope and pray that conflicts will magically disappear if you ignore them long enough. If I ignore that person long enough, or that conflict, or that situation with my boss, or friend, or whatever, if I ignore it long enough, it's going to go away. Has it ever? Have you ever not found that friend down the road and be like, hey, buddy, and it's not been the most awkward situation in the world? No, it never goes away. It never goes away. No matter how long you push off that situation, it will never, ever go away. Time does not heal all wounds without resolution. Okay, when resolution, then time can begin to heal things. But if you just act like it's not there, not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It actually turns more into like a little snowball. I think we've all seen movies or cartoons where a little snowball starts on top of a mountain and it ends up building into a giant avalanche, taking somebody out or something like that. And that's usually what happens when we push off our problems and avoid them. It turns into an avalanche in our lives. This beatitude demands not having a passive acceptance of conflict because we're afraid of what might happen if we confront it. But it's the act of facing it and making peace of it that is where the blessing occurs in each one of our lives. You'll notice he said, blessed are the peacemakers. He didn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers. And there's a big difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. A peacekeeper often avoid conflict to keep peace. They're the ones that are like, whoa, things are, getting a little too intense in here. Or they're the people that just submit. They'll submit to it or something like that. And those are a peacekeeper, to avoid the conflict and to not sort anything out. They're like, hey, you guys are about to be in a fist fight. Let's not, that's the peacekeeper. You let things slide, thinking, oh, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. The problem is you let so much slide without dealing with it that it's impossible to keep it from growing and growing and growing. And I know every one of us have experienced a conflict where if you don't resolve it, especially immediately, if you don't resolve it immediately, it just boils in your gut. And you're miserable. You're miserable thinking about it. And that's all you're dwelling on. Why would that happen? Why would this be done? And all these different things. And it makes you feel terrible. As we celebrate this Memorial Day, all the men and women who gave their lives for our country, and not just our country, as I thought about this, not just our country, but for people all across the world. I thought of them as I studied this Peacemaker study. I thought of them because they weren't afraid to face a real threat that was coming to take peace away from people. They didn't look at it and say, "Oh, I don't want to get into that messy situation. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to. If I just turn around and put my hand in the sand, it will go away. Adolf Hitler will stop doing what he's doing." No, they saw a situation that needed to be resolved, and they came in to create a better future where people could have peace. Now, I'm not endorsing war or force as a go-to option as a peacemaker, because that's not the method that Jesus teaches us. I'm simply stating that those brave men and women stood up and didn't ignore a conflict in the hopes of avoiding the inevitable messy clash that was going to happen. They were bold. They stood up when conflict arose, and they met it head on. in order to create a peaceful resolution. Now, there was violence involved in that, and again, I'm not endorsing that, but I love the fact that they stood up in front in the midst of conflict. A peacemaker will embrace conflict in order to get lasting peace. You understand that? A peacemaker will confront conflict because they want to see a lasting peace occur in that situation. I always personally want to run from conflict. There's a conflict. If I could, I want to bury my head in the sand and hope it goes away. I am that person. I don't like it. I don't actually know very many people that well, no, there are some people that just make everything a conflict. But I don't desire it. I don't want it. If I have an opportunity to run from it and get away from it, I try to. And my wife is the peacemaker in my home. We get it, believe it or not, we get into it at times. And we'll get into arguments or fights, whatever you want to call it. And I will be like, you know what, I'm done, and I'll walk away. I'm like, I'm done. You win. I'm done. You win, I submit. You win, I'm done. I walk away. And she is the peacemaker because, no, we're going to face this conflict head on until we fight it out, and it is done. And we are back to being what we are, or back to being who we should be. And she is our peacemaker in our marriage. A peacemaker will, and I'm a peacekeeper typically in our marriage. A peacemaker will embrace this conflict, as I said. A peacemaker will say, we're not going to work around this issue, we're going to work on this issue and move forward in our lives. And with the help of the Prince of Peace, that is Jesus, we believe there can be peace in every relationship that we have. I understand, though, that relationships are a two-way street, and I know that many of you have probably experienced a time where you've wanted to create peace and you've offered an olive branch and tried to make resolution in that relationship, but the other person wasn't having it. The other person doesn't desire it. It's not ready for that point. But that's between them and God. But we are still called to be the peacemaker regardless of what they decide to do. Okay? And it's not like a give-up time. If you go to them with an olive branch and they don't desire it, well, it doesn't mean you stop. Because we are always to be peacemakers. Always to be peacemakers. I truly believe if Jesus could have given an illustration, as he did this, he's like, you want to know if you're not a peacemaker? If you walk through the Walmart line or walk through Walmart aisles and you see somebody and you want to walk away and go down the different aisles so you don't have to interact with them, that's not what I want you to be. That's not what I want you to be. Okay, I think that's what Jesus would. I think that if that was an example he could make, he would have made that as an example. But Jesus is the one that can create peace because he's the Prince of Peace, and he can do a great work through us if we're willing to submit. I love how Jesus ends this beatitude by saying that his peacemakers will be called children of God. And whenever he says children of God, what he means by it is not necessarily that we're a part of his family, but what he means that we are doing God-like work as God does. So God is in the business of being a peacemaker. That is who God is. That's his characteristics. That's what he's saying. That I'm a peacemaker. God is a peacemaker. I want you to be like me. So when he says that you will become children of God, what he's saying is you will do work like me. When you are a peacemaker, you will be doing the same work that I am in the business of doing. And I think that's exactly who we all desire. We're all called to be. God alone is the great peacemaker. He made peace through Jesus' blood between a righteous, perfect God and unrighteous sinners. I love what Romans 5:1 says. Therefore, since we have been made right in God's sight by faith, we have peace with God because of what Jesus Christ our Lord has done for us. I know at times it's very hard to keep peace with people. Even in families. Even in families, it's hard to keep peace in our own families, who we love. And it's even, as I think about this, it's even harder to keep peace whenever you're undeserving of whatever the conflict. Maybe the conflict arose and you were undeserving and didn't deserve what happened to you. I remember when I was a kid, this happened in junior high. It's going to make some of my family laugh, but that's fine. I had a big nose. I still have a big nose. but my face kind of grew around my nose. Jessica, stop laughing. Grew around my face kind of grew longer to fit my nose, but in junior high, it was really that awkward stage in my life where my nose was just like half the size of my face. And, I kind of got made fun of quite a bit about my nose. And there was this one person in particular who was one of my friends, and he was this wee little guy, and he made fun of my nose above all else. He was the ringleader in making fun of my nose, and then all my friends just kind of laughed at it and kind of just let it happen and thought it was funny because it created a laugh in them. And I, there are certain times where I can handle that, and I try to keep peace, but there's moments that mounted up where I'm like, dude, you are small. I can smoke you and like knock you out. I can knock you cold. And there are times where I could fight. My brother and I fought big guys. But there are constant times I chose not to fight back to people because I wanted to create peace. Because I longed for a situation where this guy actually happened to be one of my friends, and we played sports together, and we were really good together. We were really good at sports together, and I didn't want to ruin, I thought, man, if I fought him, maybe my friends might be on his side and might not want to be my friend anymore. And so there are all these things going through my head that I can't give him what he deserves. And trust me, I could have knocked him out cold. If I can fight my brother that's 5 years older than me, I can fight this guy that's littler than me easily. And I refuse to do that because I tried to weigh out, if I'm able to create peace in this situation, then maybe I can continue to have this person as a friend, which, believe it or not, even though I got made fun of by this person, I still longed for him to be my friend. And I loved what the opportunities that I had to continue to play sports and to have our main group of friends, and I felt like I just couldn't give in to the pressure, and I needed to keep the peace no matter what. Even though it was tearing me up inside and anger was filling my heart, I remembered the verse Romans chapter 12, verse 17 and 18, when it says, "Do not repay evil for evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone." And that was instilled in my life at a young age. That not to repay someone who does something evil for evil. I was often told that a lot by my folks because my sister would often do something evil to me and I'd hit her back. You're not allowed to hit your sister. Can't hit girls. Okay, but it was that mentality of you can't repay. Just because someone does something bad to you doesn't mean you can hit them back or do that back. And from my parents to my grandparents, that was taught to me. And that's a powerful statement. Paul tells us that we are to live a life at peace with everyone, even if they do evil to you. That's what Paul's telling us. Even if someone does evil to you, you are still called to live in peace with that person. That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. Then I love what it says in verse 21. Do not be overcome by evil, but instead we're going to overcome evil with good. Isn't that awesome? If we can take the high road, even if we are the ones that did nothing wrong, if we take the high road of Christ, the road that Christ took on the cross, if we can take that same road and be above the evil that's being thrown at us, we can allow the love of God to overcome the evil with His love and His goodness. So instead of repaying evil with evil and the conflict, if someone does something wrong to you and you butt heads with that person and a conflict has arisen, if we can overcome it with the goodness of Christ, if we can overcome it and be good, even if they deserved, like this guy in my life deserved for me to punch him square in the nose and make his nose bigger than my nose, even though that's what he deserved, if we can overcome it with the love of Christ, then God can do something immeasurably more than we could ever imagine through that situation. True healing can occur in that situation, the way that God desires it to be handled. Jewish rabbis held the highest task which anyone can perform was to establish a good, God-honoring relationship with all people that you come in contact with. Which brings us back to this beatitude again. It says, "Blessed are those who, again, Shalom, make the world a better place for everyone to live because they desire for everyone to experience the greatest good possible, the blessings of God in their life. So what are some practical steps that we can take in order to be peacemakers and on mission for everyone to experience shalom in our lives? Even if in your mind those people don't deserve shalom. That's a hard pill to swallow. Because I know there's a lot of people you're thinking in your head right now, well, they don't deserve the greatest good in their life. They deserve a punch in the face, or they deserve whatever. And that's not what Christ has called us to be as peacemakers. I believe we can start with Ephesians 4:15 when it says, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. Number one, tell the truth to people, but don't attack people. Okay? Never attack a person. Okay? As you speak truth in love. You never attack a person. You speak to the issue. I can't think of any time. I mean, I know Jesus flipped tables in the temple and was angry about that, but every time that people attacked Jesus, he spoke pretty, according to the way I read Scripture and don't see exclamation points, I think Jesus spoke very even-keeled and kept his cool throughout most of these encounters that we have, but he spoke truth in love, with love and wisdom, and he didn't attack a person, he attacked the situation, he attacked the issue. Peacemakers will always tell the truth in love, even if it's uncomfortable and awkward. Why? Because we desire to see healing and restoration and will not settle for a loss. Okay, so often we'll just be like, you know what? I guess they're lost to me. I guess they're done. I guess that's not who we are. I guess that's not in the cards for me. I guess we're not going to be friends anymore or co-workers or whatever, not have a relation whatsoever. And they just check it off because they don't want to experience the awkwardness and the stress that's going to come and the tension that's going to come from having that painful conversation with them. But that is not the life of a peacemaker. Another step we can make to be a peacemaker comes from James 5:16. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and repay for each other so that you may be healed. Friends, it's such a powerful thing to apologize and forgive others. Jesus said when we are peacemakers, we are children of God. Well, children of God are supposed to look like God, are supposed to act like God, it's supposed to be a representation of who God is. And God is all about restoring relationships, restoring people to have a relationship with Him. He's all about restoration. He did that for us on the cross. You never look more like God than when you forgive and make peace, just like God did for us on the cross. Restoring broken relationships is the heart of God. The opposite, however, occurs when we do nothing, when we have hurt and broken relationships. When you run from it and hide from it, you can hinder your own personal relationship with God. Broken relationships with others affects every part of our life. Broken relationships rob your personal joy. And as I said before, whenever you get in these conflicts, it just gnaws on you the entire time. It just gnaws and gnaws and gnaws on you, and it robs you of your joy. I'm going to be kind of closing down here, so Kendra, you guys can head this way. Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 and 24, it says, so if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar, this is what Jesus says, if you're presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, and go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. So I want you guys to understand that. Before you can come and worship, what Jesus is saying is before you come and bring your sacrifice, before you come and worship me, worship God, you need to go and reconcile with your brother, make amends with your brother, ask for forgiveness or say sorry or create that bridge between that relationship before you can come and worship God. Why does God say this? Throughout all the New Testament, He says constantly, if you have not forgiven your brother, I will not forgive you in heaven. Constantly. Why? Because we've been forgiven so much more than you could ever possibly imagine. We deserve a sinner's hell. We have basically spit in God's face. We've cursed God in the way we've lived our lives, the way we've fallen in sin. We've basically cursed God, spit in his face, and said, get out. I want to have anything to do with you all throughout our lives. Whether even if you're a good person, you still did that. If you fell short of God's glory and you've sinned in your life, that's basically what you've done to God. And Jesus still came and died on the cross for you and gave you eternal life. He's forgiven you, given you opportunity, and forgive you. He's the peacemaker. He's already made peace with you. If you would just accept his peace, you will have that peace with him. And he says, if I have done that for you, you have to do it to other people. You have to do it to other people. Why? Because as believers, we are his example to the world. And if we are children of the light, his children of God, and we're to be God-like, we have to be the example to the world of who Jesus is. When we are peacemakers to people in our lives, we are revealing to them that God has equally done even greater peacemaking in their lives as well. That's who we are called to be. That's who we're supposed to be. Restoring broken relationships is the priority before you can give God all your heart in worship. Before I moved back into pastoral ministry out of camping ministry, I had a whole lot of issues going on in my mind. Camp had really messed with me. We'll say that. Camp had really messed with my mind and the stuff that I did, that I actually had to go see a counselor for a while to kind of help work some things out. And one of the first things, as we were working through some of my issues that had occurred in my life, the first thing that I had to do was admit that I was broken and needed to be restored. I had to admit that. And then the second thing I had to do was then go make amends with people that I had wronged, that I loved. Even though in my mind I had made in my mind I had done nothing really that wrong. The things that I had problem with, which is the issues with control and fear, the things I had done weren't all that bad. They were not something I had done that was really evil. But I had to go make amends before I could move forward and move past and to move to long-lasting peace in my life. And so I had to do that. And one of the first things I do is to go apologize to my wife and tell her I'm sorry and that I loved her. Because typically the person that we are the closest to and the people that we're closest to are the people that get the brunt of the undeserving conflicts in our lives. And I had to apologize to my wife. And I remember at that moment, like a weight of 1,000,000 pounds kind of came off my shoulders, and just admitting that I needed, that I had wronged her, admitting that I needed to have restoration in my relationship with her, meant everything to her. It meant everything to me as well. And a major growth occurred in our relationship that I don't believe could have happened without me being that peacemaker, and not justifying my actions and justifying what I was doing, but being that peacemaker, and it made all the difference in our relationship. And so I want to challenge you all this morning. Some of you might think that the peacemaking is impossible in your relationships. Maybe there are people in your life that you have been putting your head in the sand and you're ignoring, you turn your back in hopes that it will go away. It's never going to go away. It's going to just get worse. And God doesn't want us, as followers of him, according to this beatitude, he does not want us to not address the issues, to address the conflicts. He wants us to be active peacemakers so that he can use that restoration in those relationships to be an example, to be a parallel of the restoration that he wants to do in people's lives through salvation. So we get to be that example. And so he's called us to be peacemakers. And when you think it's impossible, always remember that there's nothing that's impossible with God. Nothing. Nothing that you could do that he wouldn't restore in your life. And there's no relationship that if you submit and surrender in that relationship that he can't work through it and do something incredible in. And so if you think it's a lost cause, you're the one that's gave up. Okay? If you surrender to God and his authority and the power of the Holy Spirit, man, I'll tell you that he could do something incredible that you couldn't even imagine in 1,000,000 years that he could do through that relationship if you just submit to his authority and his leading in that situation, in that conflict. But it's going to only be through the Prince of Peace, that peace can occur if you submit. Would you please stand and pray with me?